As you've been hearing, Gardaí are investigating the murder of a Ballymun woman in her 50s that has left the community in a state of shock, and 12 stab wounds and a frenzied attack.
The investigation into the brutal death of Lisa Thompson, stabbed multiple times in her own home, has become a harrowing and complex case. Lisa Thompson, aged 52, had lived in the Sandy Hill Gardens area of Balmain for her entire life. Known for her compassion and generosity, she had earned the love and admiration of everyone who knew her. She had dedicated years of her life to helping others, particularly young people, as a former youth worker. Described as someone with a heart of gold, Lisa was always ready to lend a helping hand to those in need. She was a quiet and private individual who loved nothing more than spending time with her 2 children, whom she referred to as her jewels. Though she and their father were no longer together, the relationship between Lisa and her ex-husband remained amicable for the sake of their children. On the surface, Lisa seemed to lead a simple, fulfilling life, but everything would change on one fateful night. It was the early hours of May 9, 2022, around 2 a.m., when the first signs of something was wrong began to emerge. Lisa's neighbor, who was awake at the time, heard strange banging noises coming from Lisa's home. At first she couldn't make sense of it, but the sounds seemed to be getting louder and more erratic. She leaned closer to her window to get a better look, her curiosity piqued. What she saw next was nothing short of alarming. A man was standing in Lisa's backyard, loading large bags into the back of a vehicle. His actions were hurried, and there was an odd sense of urgency in his movements. After finishing what he was doing, the man drove off in the direction of the main road, disappearing into the night. The neighbor, now growing anxious, knocked on Lisa's door 3 times but received no response. She had heard strange sounds before, but this felt different. A sense of unease settled in her stomach. Something wasn't right. But Lisa's neighbor wasn't the only one who had noticed something strange that night. Another neighbor, also disturbed by the noises coming from Lisa's home, heard banging on the walls followed by the sound of the gate opening. As she peeked out of her window, she noticed a light was on in Lisa's kitchen, which, given the time of night, struck her as odd. Why would Lisa have her kitchen light on at 2 a.m.? By the morning of May 10th, after having no luck in reaching Lisa, one of the neighbors became extremely concerned. She decided to check on Lisa in person. Upon arriving, she discovered that the front door was locked, but strangely the back door was ajar. Growing more worried, she stepped inside to make sure everything was all right. What she found, however, would haunt her forever. At approximately 3:30 p.m., the neighbor found Lisa's lifeless body lying in the rear doorway of her home. It was immediately clear that something had gone horribly wrong. The house was in disarray, her bedroom had been ransacked, and 2 knives were missing from the kitchen. The scene was chaotic, unsettling, and horrifying. As the neighbor frantically called emergency services, the Gardaí were alerted, and the investigation into Lisa's death began. When the Gardaí arrived at the scene, they were met with a harrowing sight. Lisa's body bore signs of a violent struggle. She had multiple stab wounds to her chest, and her nose and mouth were covered in blood. A window blind cord had been wrapped tightly around her neck, an apparent attempt at strangling her. The most chilling part of the discovery was the number of stab wounds, 11, 6 of which had pierced her heart. Lisa had been murdered in a brutal and calculated fashion. A pathologist later confirmed that Lisa had died from a combination of the fatal stab wounds and asphyxiation caused by the strangulation. The investigation into her death was now officially underway, and every piece of evidence would need to be scrutinized. As emergency responders worked on the scene, forensics teams were brought in to investigate further. The area surrounding Lisa's house was cordoned off as experts meticulously examined every corner of the property. The local community stood in shock as they watched the unfolding events. Lisa was a kind-hearted woman, a devoted mother and a friend to so many. How could something so tragic have happened to her? As the Gardaí worked tirelessly to piece together the details of the case, the local community was left wondering about the motive behind such a brutal crime. Was Lisa targeted randomly? Or was there something more personal behind the attack? Had this been a robbery gone wrong? Or had a dispute escalated to violence? In the course of their investigation, the Gardaí made a shocking discovery in Lisa's home. Hidden in the attic were 2 large bags containing prescription tablets worth nearly €50,000. The discovery raised even more questions about Lisa's involvement in illegal activities. A neighbor later came forward, revealing that Lisa had been selling the tablets for €15 per tray to a small group of individuals. The revelation that Lisa had been involved in illegal drug dealing was met with disbelief by many. While it wasn't clear if she had been willingly involved or if she had been coerced, the fact that prescription drugs had been found in her home raised suspicions. Had Lisa become involved in something dangerous without fully understanding the risks? Or had she been forced into this life by someone else? As the investigation deepened, it became clear that several items had been stolen from Lisa's home during the attack, including her wallet and jewelry. This added yet another layer of complexity to the case. Could the murder have been motivated by the desire to steal? Or was it a crime of passion? The Gardaí were working to connect the dots, but every new piece of evidence only seemed to raise more questions. The discovery of the stolen goods suggested that robbery could have been a factor in the crime. But the brutal nature of the attack, combined with the involvement of prescription drugs, suggested that there might have been a deeper, more personal motive at play. Was this a botched robbery or was Lisa targeted for a completely different reason? The community of Balmain remains hopeful that the truth will eventually come to light. The search for answers continues, and the family and friends of Lisa Thompson are determined to seek justice for her brutal death. While the investigation progresses, the grief-stricken town remains in shock, trying to come to terms with the untimely loss of one of their own. For those who knew Lisa, the aftermath of her murder has been nothing short of devastating. The murder of a woman so loved by her community, someone who devoted much of her life to helping others, seemed incomprehensible. How could such a loving mother and good-hearted woman meet such a violent and senseless end? The question has lingered in the air, hanging over the town like a cloud. But amidst the grief there is also a sense of unity. Lisa's loved ones have not given up hope that the person responsible will be caught and brought to justice. In the days following Lisa's murder, her friends, family, and even the local residents who knew her only in passing, came together in solidarity. They shared their memories of Lisa, stories of her kindness, her willingness to help, and her deep love for her children. Her children, who were still reeling from the shock of losing their mother, found comfort in the support from their extended community. Lisa's ex-husband, too, was affected deeply by her death. Despite the end of their marriage, they had maintained a cordial relationship, co-parenting their children and raising them in a peaceful environment. Now he too would have to grapple with the reality that the mother of his children had been taken from them in such a horrific way. Vigil and memorials were held in Lisa's honor, where friends and neighbors gathered to pay their respects. Candles were lit, flowers were laid, and heartfelt messages were shared by those who had known her well. The people of Balmain wanted to ensure that Lisa was remembered, not just for her untimely death, but for the life she led. She had been a fixture of their community, someone who was always there for others. In death she would not be forgotten. The Gardaí have not rested since the discovery of Lisa's body. Their investigation into the crime has been thorough, with detectives meticulously sifting through the evidence to try and uncover the truth. The initial reports from the crime scene were shocking. The severity of the attack, 11 stab wounds, 6 of which had pierced her heart, left investigators stunned. Add to that the strangulation by a window-blind cord, and it was clear that this was a highly violent and personal crime. But what could have motivated such a brutal attack on a woman who, by all accounts, was well-liked and did not seem to have any enemies? As they gathered evidence and interviewed neighbors, the Gardaí began to piece together a timeline of the events leading up to Lisa's death. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises on the night of May 9th, loud banging followed by the sighting of a man in her backyard, carrying bags and loading them into a vehicle. This strange man had then driven away, but no one had thought to call the authorities immediately. The early hours of May 10th were filled with confusion and concern, but it wasn't until later that day, when Lisa was found dead in her own home, that the true horror of the situation became apparent. The Gardaí also began investigating Lisa's personal life in greater detail, hoping to uncover any possible connections to her murder. They scoured her home, looking for clues that might explain the motive behind the killing. It was then that they uncovered the stash of prescription drugs in her attic, drugs worth almost €50,000. This discovery raised new questions. How did Lisa come to possess such a large quantity of prescription pills? And why had she been selling them? Was this something she was doing willingly, or was she coerced into it? The Gardaí began to suspect that Lisa's involvement with these drugs might have been a factor in her death. But the deeper they delved into her life, the more questions they had. The discovery of the drugs and the subsequent revelation that Lisa had been selling them for €15 per tray was a significant turn in the investigation. Neighbors who knew her better came forward to reveal that Lisa had been dealing prescription pills to a small group of buyers. It was unclear if she had gotten involved in this illicit activity out of desperation or if there was someone pressuring her into it. Some speculated that Lisa had become caught up in the local drug scene, unaware of the dangers that came with it. The Gardaí were now investigating whether Lisa had unwittingly become involved with local criminals. Did she owe money to someone? Was this murder the result of a botched drug deal or a warning from a dangerous group? Or was there another, more personal reason behind her death? The more the Gardaí uncovered, the murkier the case seemed. It wasn't just a straightforward murder, it was tangled in a web of possible criminal connections and personal turmoil. In a town like Balmain where everyone knew each other, this was a reality that many were unwilling to face. Lisa had been a trusted member of the community, known for her warm heart and selfless nature. Yet, behind closed doors, her life had become entangled in something darker. It was a betrayal not just to Lisa, but to everyone who had trusted her. And now that darkness had led to her violent death. As the investigation continued, the Gardaí began to focus on potential suspects. They questioned Lisa's ex-husband, her children's friends, and the small circle of people who had been buying the drugs from her. They also interviewed Lisa's neighbors, hoping to uncover any further information about the man seen in her backyard on the night of May 9th. But despite their efforts, they could find no concrete leads. The mystery deepened as the Gardaí continued to search for clues. Was Lisa's murder the result of a robbery gone wrong, or was it something more personal? Could the man seen in her backyard be the killer? Or was there someone else involved? Someone closer to Lisa, someone who knew her well? The Gardaí were left chasing shadows, unsure of where to turn next. For the family and friends of Lisa Thompson, the pain of losing her was made even worse by the uncertainty surrounding her death. Her children were left without their mother, and her loved ones were left without answers. The entire town of Balmain was left to mourn her loss while hoping, praying, that the truth would come to light. But with each passing day, the mystery surrounding Lisa's murder only seemed to grow more complicated. Despite the challenges facing the Gardaí, the community of Balmain has refused to give up hope. They continue to support Lisa's family, helping them through their grief and standing by them as they await justice. Lisa's children, still young and innocent, deserve closure. They deserve to know why their mother was taken from them in such a violent and senseless manner. And the people of Balmain, too, deserve the peace of knowing that the person responsible for this horrific crime will be brought to justice. The search for Lisa's killer is far from over, but the community's resolve is unwavering. Lisa may be gone, but her memory lives on in the hearts of those who loved her. And as the Gardaí continue their investigation, the people of Balmain stand together, determined to see justice done in Lisa Thompson's name. The search for Lisa's killer is far from over, but the community's resolve is unwavering. Lisa may be gone, but her memory lives on in the hearts of those who loved her. And as the Gardaí continue their investigation, the people of Balmain stand together, determined to see justice done in Lisa Thompson's name. Her family, friends, and neighbors refuse to let her death become just another unsolved case. They know that Lisa's murder was not only a personal tragedy but also a crime that must be solved for the sake of the entire community. The ties that bound Lisa to Balmain are strong, and the search for the truth has only strengthened the collective bond among her loved ones and the people she touched throughout her life. As the Gardaí continue to investigate, the media has played an essential role in keeping the public aware of the developments in the case. News outlets have covered every new detail, from the discovery of the prescription drugs in Lisa's attic to the possible connections to local criminal elements. Public interest remains high, with many hoping for a breakthrough that will bring clarity to this tragic case. But as the investigation unfolds, there is also a sense of frustration. The more that's uncovered about Lisa's life, the more complicated the situation becomes. Was she really involved in the drug trade, or was she merely caught up in a situation that spiraled out of control? These questions have left many people, both inside and outside Balmain, wondering whether Lisa's death was the result of a random act of violence or whether there were darker forces at play. Despite the media's interest in the case, the community's desire for justice remains their top priority. They do not want Lisa to be remembered solely for the circumstances of her death but for the life she lived, her devotion to her children, her kindness to others, and her unrelenting spirit to make the world around her a better place. The Gardaí are leaving no stone unturned in their search for Lisa's killer. They have retraced her last days, interviewing neighbors, friends, and even those who might have been close to her in the months leading up to her death. Despite the shocking discovery of the drugs and stolen items, the Gardaí have made it clear that they are still investigating all possible leads. The forensic evidence is being carefully analyzed, and they are following up on every tip and piece of information, no matter how small. The presence of prescription drugs in Lisa's attic continues to be a key part of the investigation. The Gardaí are looking into whether this was simply a financial issue, with Lisa possibly being involved in a small-time drug-dealing operation, or if something more sinister was at play. Was she targeted because of her involvement with the drugs, or was the real motive something more personal, an unresolved conflict or an enemy from her past? One of the most significant elements in the investigation is the man seen in Lisa's backyard the night of her death. Despite the neighbor's initial sighting, there has been no trace of him, and the Gardaí are working tirelessly to track him down. Was he the killer, or was he merely a witness to a crime? There are still so many unanswered questions, and the Gardaí are determined to find the person responsible. For Lisa's family, the emotional toll of her murder is immeasurable. Her children especially have been left with a deep sense of loss. The tragedy of losing their mother in such a violent way is something they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. The memories of their mother, who loved them so deeply, now exist in a painful void. They remember her not just for the horrific way she died, but for the way she nurtured and cared for them, always putting their needs first. Lisa's ex-husband has also been devastated by the loss. Although they were no longer together, their bond as co-parents remained strong. His grief is complicated by the fact that he is also left to care for their children without the presence of their mother. In the midst of the pain, however, there is a sense of determination. Lisa's family is committed to ensuring that her death will not be in vain. They will not rest until the person responsible for this senseless murder is brought to justice. In Balmain, life has not returned to normal. The murder of Lisa Thompson has cast a long shadow over the community. People who once saw their neighborhood as a safe and welcoming place now find themselves questioning how well they really know those around them. But even in the face of such tragedy, there is a collective determination to honor Lisa's memory and to keep the fight for justice alive. Lisa's friends and neighbors continue to meet regularly to support each other, sharing stories about the woman they knew and loved. They have organized fundraisers, vigils, and memorial services in her honor, ensuring that her legacy will live on long after the investigation concludes. Her children, though mourning, are surrounded by a network of people who are doing everything they can to help them heal. The community's resilience is a testament to the kind of person Lisa was. She was a woman who built lasting relationships, who gave of herself to help others, and who left a mark on every life she touched. While the investigation continues, Lisa's family and friends are committed to ensuring that her memory is cherished. They want the world to know the woman she was, not just the victim of a brutal crime, but a mother, a friend, a mentor, and a person who made a difference in the lives of so many. For now, the Gardaí are still chasing leads and piecing together the mystery of Lisa's death. The road to justice may be long, but the commitment of the Gardaí, the community of Balmain, and Lisa's family will not waver. The search for the truth is far from over, and as each day passes, the hope for closure grows stronger. The people of Balmain will not rest until they know the truth behind Lisa Thompson's murder, and until the person responsible for her death is held accountable for their actions. Despite the darkness surrounding Lisa's death, there is still hope. The community's strength and resolve, along with the unwavering determination of Lisa's loved ones, will drive them forward. With every passing day, the people of Balmain move closer to the justice that Lisa deserves. They will not allow her memory to be forgotten. As we continue to follow Lisa's story and the search for justice, we urge anyone with information about the case to come forward. The smallest detail might be the key to solving this horrific crime. If you have any information, please contact the Gardaí. Let's ensure that Lisa's legacy is one of justice and truth. If you're finding this case as gripping and important as we are, don't forget to show your support. Hit that like button to let us know you're following along, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an update. We'll be diving deeper into more cases like this, bringing you the details and justice stories that need to be heard. Your subscription helps us continue to bring these stories to light. And feel free to share this with others. Together we can keep the search for justice alive. Thank you for being part of our community, and we'll see you in the next video.